Hi, I'm Dani Stein, and we're back here today with Taunia Kipp of Mountain Media, who is a PCI Level 1 compliant service provider. Taunia, last time you were here, you were talking to us a little bit about what PCI compliance is, and you started explaining the levels of PCI compliance. So can you kind of refresh our memories for us a little bit, go over those again, and explain how a merchant demonstrates compliance?
Sure. Well, all merchants are going to fall into one of 4 different levels, and these are defined by Visa, and they're based on the number of annual Visa transactions that a merchant performs each year. So a level 1 merchant, for example, is a large one, is one that processes 6 million or more transactions a year. And again, it's important to note that I'm talking about transactions here, not dollar volume, not the amount of dollars transacted, but the number of transactions themselves. And a level 1 merchant, it does not matter the process or the acceptance channel for that transaction. It could be somebody that's taking a face-to-face credit card, or somebody that's transacting via e-commerce website, or taking a phone or mail order. And then level 2, similarly to level 1, it does not matter the acceptance channel, is a merchant who's processing between 1 and 6 million Visa transactions annually. And then we get into level 3 and 4 merchants, which are e-commerce merchants, and they're processing in a level 3 between 20,000 and 1 million Visa transactions annually. And then we have a level 4 merchant, which is what we work with most here at Mountain Media. It's our small to mid tier merchants, and they're processing less than 20,000 Visa transactions annually. When it comes to demonstrating the compliance, there are some big differences between a level 1 and a level 4. Level 1 and 2 merchants are required to have an independent on-site audit, and so they need to have an on-site auditor come in, and then what needs to be submitted to their acquiring bank is what is known as a ROC, or an ROC, which is a report on compliance. Level 3 and 4 merchants are able to complete what is called a self-assessment questionnaire, an SAQ, and there are different levels of SAQs, but they're able to do a self-assessment versus having an on-site audit and completing a formal ROC.
So for all of those small to mid-sized businesses out there that are level 4 merchants, then what do they have to do? What do they have to demonstrate to be PCI compliant?
Okay, well, the first thing they need to do is identify what their validation type is, and they can find that information at the Security Council's website. And by answering just a few questions about their business and how they transact business and how they handle credit cards, they can find out which type of SAQ they're able to complete, which I mentioned before. There are 5 different levels of SAQ, or 5 different offerings of self-assessment questionnaires. A self-assessment questionnaire A is for merchants who handle card not present transactions. So those are e-commerce, mail, or telephone order. And that's also for the merchant whose all the cardholder data functions are outsourced. So, potentially to someone like a Mountain Media or another service provider. A self-assessment questionnaire B is for imprint-only merchants, and again, those with no electronic cardholder data stored. And then level C is split out 2 different ways, which can be a little confusing, but it's for merchants who use only web-based virtual terminals and don't store any electronic cardholder data, or merchants with payment application systems connected to the internet who don't store any cardholder data. And then we have self-assessment questionnaire D, which is kind of for everybody else. And so that's anybody that doesn't fall into those other categories.
So for all of those merchants out there who might not be completed with the process of going through PCI compliance, or they're not doing it at all, what penalties are there, if any, for non-compliance?
Sure. Well, the credit card brands, which again, the PCI, which is made up of the 5 major brands of Visa, MasterCard, American Express, JCB, and Discover, at their discretion can penalize an acquiring bank for any, of course for breaches, but also for any non-compliance that they have within the merchants that they're currently hosting accounts for. And so those penalties can range anywhere from $5,000 to $200,000 a month to that acquiring bank, and thus those acquiring banks often roll those fees downstream, and eventually they hit the merchant. So a lot of those banks will be charging their merchants $20, $50, $80, $100 a month until they're able to demonstrate their compliance to the acquiring bank. So there right away there are some financial burdens. But additionally, of course, if you're not compliant and you're unable to demonstrate to your bank that you are within compliance by going through the process of the DSS, you could lose your ability to transact credit cards altogether. And of course, if that happens, that could be detrimental to many different businesses who rely on being able to take credit cards for the payments of their business.
So Taunia, bottom line, if you want to be able to take credit cards at all for your business, it's a really good idea to become PCI compliant. And actually, you've been referring to a term, cardholder data. Can you explain a little bit about what falls under that pretty broad term?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you asked that. A lot of people would assume that when we say cardholder data, we're talking about the credit card number. When in fact, cardholder data is defined as being any piece of identifiable information that's tied to that cardholder's account. So that doesn't have to just be the card, the number on the credit card. That can be the credit card holder's name, their mailing address, their social security number, many different identifiable pieces of information, and they all apply within the PCI DSS or Data Security Standards guidelines.
So for any merchants out there who might still be in the dark a little bit or have some extra questions about PCI compliance, where can those people go to find out some tips, some advice, and some more information on the subject?
Well, the best source is always going to be the PCI Security Standards Council website. There's a lot of information there. They are the governing body for this entire requirement, and pretty much all of the information that you need is there. Also, if you're working with a third-party service provider now, especially e-commerce merchants, because that's who I work with the most, talk to your service provider. A company like Mountain Media deals with compliance issues all the time and can help merchants become compliant, or at least demonstrate their compliance to the acquiring bank, so that they don't, aren't imposed with those penalties and fees.
Okay, so once again, Taunia Kipp from Mountain Media here with us today, explaining PCI compliance a little bit. Taunia, thank you so much. We hope to have her back very soon with some tips for compliance.